gas or electric cars? Who pollutes more? This message is to all of you oil company workers and you people to whom they have deceived into doing this mess that you're doing. Now I see all these different ads on claiming that EVs do all this polluting, which is a bold-faced lie. Yes, right now the manufacturing process that they do, everything that we produce pollutes. But they're trying to let on like the gasoline automobiles pollute a lot less than what the electric cars do. Well, then I tell you what, you think about that for a minute. But as far as maintenance goes, well, I owned a 2019 Chevy Bolt. I went everywhere I wanted to go in the 5 years that we owned the car. I kept it and I put on about 73,000 miles and I didn't use a drop of gasoline. And for the work I did on it, well, I put on a new set of tires once. And that was all that I ever did to it. I drove it. I didn't have to do oil changes. I didn't have to replace spark plugs. I didn't have to have it tuned up. I didn't have to do anything but drive it. And yet, you people want to run around and scare somebody and tell them, oh, these cars are this, and they're not dependable, and they're that, and this, that, and the other. Well, it was been the most dependable car that I've ever owned. But just look how you infer that the combustion engines are doing so good, and yet I tell you what you do. You bring your gas guzzler up here to West Virginia some very cold day and park it in your garage here, and the power goes out. So you say, well, I got a good heater out there in my car. I'm going to go out there and get in my car. And you take your wife and kids with you and you go out and load up in the car, and you keep the door down so it'll be easier to warm your car. And so you let your car run all night long with you and your wife and children inside the car. Well, because of some of the ancient heating that has been going on here in the past years, you can't run your house off of your car because how can you do it? But I can. So with me and my family, if we wanted to go out and sit in our 2022 Chevy, we sold our Chevy Bolt, and now we got a Model 3 Tesla. And if we go out there and sit up in our car and keep warm in our garage in our car, we'll get up and go to breakfast in the morning. But you won't get up. They're going to send somebody out to your house to pick you, your wife, and your children up and carry you to the morgue. And after you're carried to the morgue, then you probably already, before you ever reach the morgue, you've already stood in front of God. And He's given you a chance to have and do something else, and you refuse to do it. You decided, oh, I'm going to keep my good gasoline automobile while it's destroying God's clean earth. But still, I don't even have to go out and get in my car, because I got a video on YouTube there, if you want to look it up, and you'll see that I keep my whole house with our Chevy Bolt. We powered our whole house, our heater, everything in our house with our Chevy Bolt, and we done it for 2 days, and probably could have done it longer. So look at what your car is going to do to you if you try to sit in it just to keep warm. Well, and then we have the people come out with an ad on MSN here just the other day complaining about all the copper being used in the electric cars. I would imagine there is some copper being used, but don't they use copper in these gasoline cars as well? In my 73 in my Chevy Bolt, I had 73,000 miles on it when I sold it. Now, if it were an ICE car and I had kept it for 73,000 miles, well, I would have got maybe out of an ICE car, it would have gotten maybe 25 miles to the gallon on gasoline. And so, what's that going to cost me? And then we look at 73,000 miles. Well, oil changes. I worked in a garage as a mechanic for years, and I did oil changes on my own cars at about every 3,000 miles. So That would have meant I'd have had 24 times I'd have had to change the oil in my car. Now, you can buy some cheap oil at Walmart for about $5 a quart. Well, that's only $25. Well, when you take that $25 times 24 times is how many times I'd have to change it in that, well, you got $600. Maybe that's not a lot to you, but me and my wife, we can go out to eat on $600 quite a few times. We can do a lot of stuff with $600. But what can you do? Then there's the antifreeze, because up here in West Virginia, you're going to have antifreeze, and if you keep up your car properly like you're supposed to, that antifreeze probably had to been changed a couple of times. And how much is it? About $10, $12, $15 a gallon? And you're going to have 2 or 3 gallons of it? And not only that, then we don't have the mufflers and tailpipes and all that, which is going to get destroyed after a while in this weather here because of all the ice and all the snow and ice and salt that they have to put on the roads to keep them up. And then there's that expensive catalytic converter, which we don't have. And if somebody doesn't steal it from you, you're still going to have it replaced every so often. So what's that going to cost you? And then there's the price of the gasoline. And who knows what the price of gasoline is going to be, the way them oil companies are doing. But at 73,000 miles, like I said a while ago, and 25 miles to the gallon, that'd be 2,920 gallons of gasoline I would have had to use in that 5 years. At $3.50 a gallon, that comes out to over $10,000. Yeah, but since I only charge here at home, our electric bill has never been over $150 in all these years. And that's when I charged, when I had my Bolt and my Tesla. And not only that, I got a Candy Cowboy, which is an electric UTV. And all 3 of them were charging off of that. And I still never had over $150 a month electric bill up here. And I tell you what, even in the hottest and the coldest weather that we have had here, my car's range has never dropped below 220 miles. So you want to whine about not getting any mileage about it, well, how far do you need to go? And if you're going to go 220 miles, go plug it in somewhere. But 220 miles is enough. I can go the 100 miles of Pittsburgh and back on that very easily. And we do it at least once a month here. And we don't have to stop and charge. But now we did a trip to Myrtle Beach a few years back, and we documented that, and it's on the YouTube channel as well. Just look under my projects. Go to Methuselah Shema on YouTube there, and look under my project channel, part of my channel, and you'll see it, and you'll see all the particulars. And when we went on that trip, we came back, we stopped in Withfield, Virginia, and got about 90% charge because it was taking so long to get to 100%, and it just kept running the price up, so I decided I'd stop about 90%. Well, we headed back home, and it was about 275 miles from Withfield to where we live here in West Virginia that we had to drive. We got home with our little Chevy Bolt in that range, and yes, it was low, but we still had another 15 miles left that we went and picked up our dog at the dog motel that she was staying at. And sure, there's a cost, but if you go out and charge out there on the road and all that, that's for sure. But again, look at that video that I made and you'll see what it costs us. A whole lot less than what it's going to cost you in your gasoline car. And the maintenance is nothing compared to what your gasoline car is going to do. You're going to be making money. And then now we charge our Tesla sometimes because we're out and about and we just like to ride around. We can do that in our Tesla because he's got charging stations everywhere. But we have rarely, if ever, went over $5 at a charging station because we just buy enough to get home on and we charge at home. Our electric here at home is about 12 cents a kilowatt. Out there at Tesla's, I think it's around 38 cents now. But some of them are even more. So charge at home. Make sure if you get an electric car, you get one with enough range to get you to work and back. And you don't have to do, or like we did at the church, we have we put in a plug at the church because we used to have a Nissan Leaf, and we drove it everywhere we wanted to go. And when we went out to the church in the wintertime, though, that Nissan Leaf would be barely getting 35 or 36 miles. So we had to charge at church in order to get home. So we put a charger in at church. And so we have to do what we have to do. As I'm 80 years old, and my wife is a little bit younger than me, not quite a year, but we are both retired, and we're not looking to have some piece of vehicle that we have to work on all the time. But not only that, the Chevy garage that I worked in years ago, and I worked in a Ford garage and as a mechanic, online mechanic, so I'm quite familiar with how automobiles are doing and how they break down and the parts and how the parts are made. And a lot of the parts are made so that they will give out, so you can come back and buy more stuff. How else are you going to keep them in business? Well, some people are saying, you know, that we're getting charged by coal-powered plants. Well, that's probably true, but that's not my job. My job is to do my part, just like your job. It's to do your part. Now, the government is trying to do their part by regulating these people, and they have done a good job so far, and I think if they have a chance, they'll do even better about keeping up with what the oil companies and coal companies are doing and making them clean up their act so they don't destroy our earth. And yet they're not making a lot of headway right now because they're being funded. They're paying off the politicians. That's what they're doing. And the politicians, poor old Biden had all these good things he wanted to do for us, and he got in there, and everybody in the world went up against him. Why? Because it's all being paid off, like that Thomas paid off by some oil company, and there he is sitting on the Supreme Court. There's a bunch of crooked politicians, but you know what? They're going to have to answer to my God. And one of these days they're going to cross that threshold where they no longer live in the flesh. But they're still going to live in the spirit, because the spirit never dies. And so they're going to have to stand in front of my God, and they're going to be judged for what they're doing. Now, you want to keep listening to these lies from the oil companies and press on? Well, go ahead. You continue to mess up God's earth, and God has provided us with a means that we don't have to do that. So God has a place in hell for all you people doing that. In Revelation chapter 11 and verse 18, he says, "The nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead that they should be judged." So there's going to be a time that you're going to be judged. "And that thou shouldest give reward to thy servants, the prophets, and to the saints, and them that fear thy name, small and great, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth." So he doesn't call this place a planet. He calls it his earth. It's not a planet. It's his earth. And that lying Antichrist, well, he's trying to run up there and be president again, but he won't have to fake what happens to him then. And you know why he didn't get killed? Because God deflected that bullet. Not for his good, but for what God wants to do with him. You know what? That fake is going to get his, because Revelation chapter 19 and verse 20 says, "And the beast was taken." That's Donald Trump, the beast. He was taken, with him the false prophet. And who would be the false prophet? J.D. Vance, of course. "That wrought miracles before him, which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image. These were cast alive into a lake of fire burning with brimstone." So God saved him so he could cast him alive into a burning lake of fire and brimstone. You know, it's going to be bad enough having to go there in the spirit, but in the way he's going to do it, alive into the lake of fire. So the bullet didn't kill him. God deflected that bullet so it wouldn't kill him. Now you think about that. Are you ready to stand in front of God and declare why you refuse to have an electric car to help not pollute this earth as much as you're doing? Well, or do you just don't care? You just need to think about that. What are you going to tell him when you stand in front of him? He says, many people are going to say, "Lord, Lord." Didn't we cast out demons in your name? Who says that? That's church people talking. Because regular people ain't out there casting out demons, are they? That's church people. And if the church people ain't getting in, what about you? Think about that with your gas guzzler out there. Thank you. Amen.